to Ember Igniters, the podcast that sets your soul ablaze. I'm Fran Malfer, here with Jenna Wilmers, our co-host, and our very special guest, Hazel, who we started speaking with recently about her life. This is part 2 of where we're going in seeing how the principles of looking at your life and determining what you want really can bring you the happiness that you're looking for. Hazel, thank you so much for having been in part 1 with us. We ended with you having told us your early story, and you had just gone into college with a full ride scholarship because you had been playing soccer, and still there was something missing in your life. And so can we pick it up from there? You had a dream. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
So I had a dream to be a figure skater. And that dream is currently sidelined because I'm trying to make it as a soccer player to please my dad and, seek his approval. And I just finished my first semester of college. When the soccer season ended, I was left with an empty hole and I decided to drop out. At the same time, I had moved out of my home with my mom. And so the financial burden of trying to make ends meet, pay rent, eat, simple things, was really too much. And I was just overwhelmed. So I'm at a point in my life where I call these the dark years. They were the struggle bus of years. So I am floundering through life, going from one job to another, just trying to figure out what do I want to do? How am I going to be successful? Skating is this thing that actually was buried. I buried it when I was 18 years old. So in my mind, I had a timeline on skating, and I thought I could still make something of it. But once I turned 18, it was like, you're too old. You'll never accomplish anything. So that dream was buried, and now I'm left with nothing.
Do you think it had to be buried? I mean, you got that dream when you were so young.
So in my mind, I only knew really one path to skating. I was going to be a single competitive skater. And at the time on TV and in the competitive circuit, there wasn't anyone older. There wasn't people in there. You know what I mean? You had a certain window to be successful as an elite athlete. And every year I kept saying, okay, I've got 6 more years. I've got, 5 more years. I've got 4 more years. And then when I got to 18, I was like, okay, I'm out of time. Time's up. And so I think that's why I buried it. And it was really sad. It was hard to do, but I thought, I'm an adult now, and I'm getting these things from other people, society expects me to do a certain thing, follow a certain course.
That's
you go
right.
to path, you go to school, you get a job, you get your career, you get married, you have kids. There's a certain timeline that I felt pressured to be on, what society expected me to do. And then there was the pressures of my parents, why don't you get a job that's going to pay money? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And it was never focused on fulfillment. It was always focused on, you have to do what you have to do because you have to do it.
Right.
And that didn't jive with me. It didn't resonate. There was this internal struggle that I just couldn't seem to overcome. So it was difficult for me to navigate as an adult because I had found my passion at such a young age. And, some people go their whole lives and they never find their passion.
It's so true.
And that's, I get that. That can be difficult too, but it was a blessing and a curse that I found my passion at age 7. It was a blessing because I got to experience pure joy and happiness and fulfillment, right? Even though I was a kid, I resonated with that. I knew what that was. And it was a curse because everything I did from then on never measured up to it. Everything was a letdown or a disappointment, and all I wanted to do was skate. So knowing that I didn't know how to skate, get back into the sport to be able to afford it, it was a curse because I felt like I would never find happiness and fulfillment in anything else. So what's the point in going on? What's the point in getting an education if I'm going to be doing a job I don't really love when I want to be on the ice?
Well, you're talking about experiences that most of us, I would have to say, experience in our lives at different times. For you, it was in your very early 20s when you made that decision to say, I'm not happy with where I'm going. For some of us, it's much later in life. We've done what society says we should do, and we continue to move in that direction, but we feel unfulfilled. What was it for you then that helped you take those dark period of your life and turn it into something that made you fulfilled?
So I was really struggling. I just couldn't seem to hold down a job. I was a good employee. Like I would go to work and I would hold down a job. But as soon as I got hired and I finished the training and I was working the 9 to 5, I'd be looking for the next job because I already knew it was unfulfilling. And I felt like a failure because I was like, why can't I do anything? Like, why can't why can't I commit to anything? And why can't I be successful at it? So it was really difficult. And I felt like a huge failure. One of the jobs though that I did have was at a gym. And again, it goes back to the fitness thing. I want to stay in shape. I want to be an athlete. I want to be fit. And I really enjoyed that job. And I actually started dating someone who worked there. He was a personal trainer. And he had given me a book called Live Your Dreams by Les Brown. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was not a reader. Unless I was forced to read a book in school, I didn't like it. And I think I was just tired all the time, and so when I would start reading a book, I'd fall asleep, and I'd be like, what's the point? I reread the same chapter like 5 times, and I'm like, okay, I give up. So I just chalked it up to I wasn't a reader. That book sat on my nightstand for months. And, you know, it was my coffee cup or my teacup holder, you know? And then I don't know why, but just one day I just looked at it and I thought, okay, what do you got to say, Les? And I picked up the book. And I started reading it, and after reading the first chapter, I was crying uncontrollably because he must have said something in that chapter, and I honestly don't remember what it was, that struck a nerve. And that dream that was inside me came erupting out. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'm not living my life the way I'm supposed to. Like, it was crystal clear. Like, why was I so miserable and tired and depressed and all these things? It's because I wasn't living my life the way I should have been.
Exactly.
I was in misalignment. And I needed to align my priorities so that my dreams could come true.
Very good.
And I think a lot of the times people misalign themselves and miss their callings because they settle for things. And sometimes we feel like it's a settle, but it's actually still leading to the next step, and we don't see it until we get farther down the road. I know when I was younger, a lot of things that I learned to get to here actually prepared me for that. But sometimes that's not the experience for people. I mean, even for you, I mean, playing soccer, the only thing that it was preparing you for with skating was keeping you fit, right? And so when we miss that alignment, then we're not living our true potential and our true purpose, and that is unfulfilling.
Well, I think the biggest lesson I learned from that stage of my life is if you're not happy and you're constantly looking for the next thing, it means you haven't found the thing. So if you're constantly looking outside of your surroundings or your current job or your current career or whatever you're doing, that's a clear indicator that you might want to take a step back and like reconsider what path you're on. Because for me, I was a failure. I failed at this job. You know, I may have got fired from that job and I quit that job. And it was just this constant like unfulfillment. And the day that I decided I wanted to skate again, happiness appeared.
Wow.
I wasn't even on the ice yet. And it was just the decision was enough of a shift. And it was like you could physically feel the life alignment go and onto the right path. It was incredible. It was amazing.
What I really draw from that is that it came from inside of you. So sometimes we're looking for the answers, like you said, out there. You know, like, oh, if I could be a rock star, or if I could be, you know, a musician with a voice like that. You know, we're looking out there, but we're not looking here. We're not saying, what is it that I do really well? Because we're not being told to look there. And I love that when you went through that book, something in your inner being resonated and brought it all back out. And then you made a decision to move forward. And I appreciate that you said it was that little step. Because sometimes people think it's got to be this big all or nothing kind of moment. And often it's not. It's in the moment when you make that one single decision that everything, like you said, all of a sudden there's a weight lifted off of you and you can clearly begin to make a path in front of you. So how did that path work out for you? What did you do next?
So what I did next was sign up for skating. So I honestly was like, okay, I'm gonna look up the local clubs. I'm gonna see when their ice time is available. I'm gonna see how much it is, and I don't know where I'm getting the money from, but I'm gonna make it work. I'm gonna get back on the ice. So I dug out those old used skates that my dad had bought
Still
me.
had them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only pair of skates that I had. And I signed up for skating. And in the fall, so the skating season goes the school year, September to like spring, and then there's like a summer program. So I could afford to skate 2 hours a week. And I dusted off those skates. It was pure joy when I stepped on the ice. It was like the smell of the rink. And some people are like, it's musty. I walked into that rink and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm back. It was so good. And I stepped on the ice and I was just like giddy. I was like, I don't know. It was incredible. And I could still skate. I could jump. I could spin. I could do everything. It wasn't great, but I could still do it. And there's this one jump that's like a very special jump. It's called an axel.
Yeah.
And not everyone can get it. Sometimes it takes skaters years to get it. Sometimes it takes them a couple months. I had a very good axle when I was younger, and that I was wondering, like, can I still do this? And I skated around, and without even hesitating, I didn't even doubt if I could do it or not. I turned backwards, pumped, scissored my arms, jumped up into the air, landed. I was like, wow, that's awesome. I was so pumped. I was
You're
so
like,
excited.
I am really back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And people were like,
Right.
I can't believe you can still do that. And let's see, how many years was I off the ice at that point? So I had quit when I was 9. And I'm now 21.
Wow.
So how many years is that? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16,
12.
A lot.
17, That's 12 years.
12
Sorry,
years.
12
No.
years. Wow. So 12 years later, I'm finally back on the ice, and I could still skate. It was amazing. It was awesome. And then 2 weeks into training, I had this really bothersome pain in my right leg, right at the top of my skate boot, and it was getting worse. And I was like, what is this? So I go to the doctor, they do an x-ray, and I have a stress fracture
Wow.
on my landing leg. And he basically said, well, you haven't done this sport in 12 years and you just went crazy. Like you just started doing everything. Like your body wasn't ready for it. You didn't have the muscle mass built. You weren't ready for it, you know? And so the top of the skate boot was digging in and it was putting pressure on the bone, and the bone cracked.
Wow.
So I was put in a cast. And my mom's like, you better put her in a cast because she'll be back on that ice, you know?
Moms are good for that.
They
I was
are.
put in a cast, and I thought, you know, there's like a window where you could get a refund. And because money was so tight, I applied to have my refund due to a medical, you know, reasoning. And they refunded my money, which meant when I healed, I couldn't skate because I no longer had ice. So I thought, okay, it's been 12 years. Honestly, like, who's counting? It doesn't matter. I'll join next fall. I'll give myself the next year the opportunity to save up more money, and I'll come back next year. Not a big deal. Well, a month before skating started, the next year I was in a car accident on a freeway, and I had whiplash, and I was in like one of those
Oh
dog
my
collars.
goodness. Yeah.
No.
And my car was totaled. So I had to get a new car. So there goes all the money I saved. And I had an injury that took almost 3 months to heal. So I thought, okay, well, I mean, what's 13 years? I can wait another year. It's been that long. I mean, we're not counting. It's no big deal. Like, just the decision to skate again was enough for me to keep moving
going.
forwards, right? And so the third year, so now I'm 23 years old, and I signed up for 2 days a week. I start skating, and 3 weeks into training, I got stress fractures in both legs.
Both of
Both
them.
legs. And I'm like, what is going on? Am I banging my head against this wall like for
yeah.
a reason? Like, am I stupid? Like, why is this happening to me? So there's a lot of emotion around that.
Sure.
I couldn't understand, like, why would I be challenged so much? I finally made the decision to follow something I'm passionate about, and the door keeps shutting in my face. You know, why is life so cruel? Why me? It's not fair. It already wasn't fair. It wasn't fair when I was little. Why is it fair now? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Can I ever catch a break? It was really, really frustrating. I'll be honest with you. And so I went to a doctor in Ontario. It was a teaching hospital. And a whole team of doctors came in and looked at my legs. They did x-rays or whatever, and they determined that I had very shallow spaces between my knee joint and the tibia and fibula. So whenever I was like skating, landing a jump, the
Oh.
bone was like buckling because it didn't have enough room to slide up and down.
Wow.
So wherever there was pressure on the bone, it was creating these fractures. So they're like,
Wow.
well, we could, remove a sliver of bone from your knee that might create more space. And I'm thinking, I'm just doing this to just simply be on the ice. I'm not willing to have surgery on both knees to remove
Yeah.
bones
Yeah.
so that I don't get stress fractures like that. That was a little bit far-fetched. And they said, well, you either, find ways to deal with the pain, which surgery we gave you an option, or you'll never skate again.
Oh.
And I remember driving home. It was a 2-hour drive home, and I thought, never skate again over my dead body. I am not going to let that happen.
That's devastating.
It was devastating. Yeah, it was devastating.
I mean, your whole future life that you were dreaming of, that propelled you and constantly kept you moving, was suddenly, hit by a brick wall of, if you continue, you'll never skate again. I can't even imagine.
While it's at your fingertips.
Right.
It's right there.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Well, and it was cruel because I had, been on the ice, and and it was just like pure bliss. And it was like, oh my gosh, finally, yes. It was like all those years, finally. And it was like, boom, you're done. You're done. So I went home and I thought, okay, I have a choice to make. I can either be done or I can get creative. So if I really want to skate, there has to be a way. And if no one has thought about it before, I will forge the path for them. I'll forge the path for me, and others can, follow. So I decided to go to one of those orthopedic places where they make braces and foot pads. So I walked in and I said, okay, here's the situation. I need you to make me this thing that tapes my leg, goes into my skate boot, and nothing can touch my bones. He was like, what? So through back and forth, we designed this item that was exactly that. And I would tape them to my legs, and I would put my skates on, and it allowed me to get on the ice. Now, it wasn't perfect because it made my feet sit kind of funny in my skates, so it was hard to find certain edges. I couldn't center my spins. If I trained anything that had a very deep knee bend, I would have to take a week or two off. But I got back on the ice 2 days a week, and I was loving life. So I found a way. I just found a way to make it happen. Wasn't perfect. It wasn't what I thought it would be, but it was perfect. It was everything I ever dreamed of.
I'm just so enamored.
I think
Just
that
wow.
one of the lessons learned just in that little piece of your life right there was you got creative. And creativity stems from how do we imagine things. So you imagined that there had to be some way that you could protect the bone. And you took whatever you knew and you went to the place you knew best. And I'm pretty sure that what you asked for and how it worked for you has helped many other people.
What made you think of the orthopedic? Like what got you there?
So I figured I needed, like, sometimes in skating, like, we'll get like bone spurs, or the skates are like really hard on your skates. So people will take like round makeup sponges and they'll cut a circle out the center, and they'll make a donut, and they'll put that over the ankle bone.
Oh.
And they'll put that in their skates so that it gives them a little bit of cushioning where the ankle bones are.
Oh.
Skates are not very
That's really
forgiving.
new.
So the old skates, the old leather, we call them bricks. The old leather bricks, they're like, they take a month or two to break in. I mean, they were so
Sure.
stiff. So I thought, okay, so I need protection. I need foam. But those foams are they compress too much. So I need something a little more sturdy, almost like a custom insole, like a little
Makes
bit more
sense.
sturdy.
Wow.
And I had them make 2 popsicle sticks, plastic popsicle sticks, so that the bone would be in the center. So you'd have a plastic stick, you'd have foam, and then you'd have another type of like foam. So it was like a sandwich. And then that went over, so the boot would touch the plastic popsicle sticks, and the foam diameter dispersed the pressure over a wider area.
Wow.
So that it
I know. I'm stunned.
Yeah.
And then I would just use this like certain type of like, tape, like medical, not tape, it was like a foam, but it looks like tape. And then I would put tape on top of that just to hold it in, then I would just cut it off.
Wow. And it got you back on the ice doing the thing that you loved. So were you able to heal to where you never needed those again, or did you continue to use those throughout your skating?
So I had to wear them. If I did a lot of jumps in a session, I'd have to take time off because it would start to flare up and I could feel it coming on again.
Sure.
So it did modify how hard I could train and how much I could train, but I did have to wear them in those skates. So after that year of training and wearing the pads inside my skates, I thought, well, instead of taping something to my body to put the skates on, why don't I get a pair of custom-made skates that are higher in height than the standard boot to protect where that bone is? Like maybe that'll help.
Oh,
Interesting.
Yeah. So I did. I actually came to the States and had a pair of custom-made skates that were 1.5 inches. Maybe they were 2 inches higher, which is kind of funny because they look like the old-fashioned skates that were really tall.
Yes.
Whereas skates keep going shorter, right? So these ones were a much higher height boot. But it worked. It protected the bone to a certain degree. The only drawback was I couldn't point my toe, right? In skating, we point our toes, so the boot was too high up the back. So I looked like hockey stick feet when I was skating. But I mean, I was just on the ice. I started taking some tests, and I had signed up to do a competition. So I'm an adult skater now, and I'm just skating and loving it, and just getting my feet wet again and enjoying the process. I had a friend that helped me learn things, and it was awesome. It was a really fun time.
So cool.
well, that begs the question for me, knowing the outcome of your life. Did you continue in the competitive side? How did you move to doing the professional side of skating?
So the professional side wasn't something that I thought I was capable of doing. I knew I could do it, but it wasn't like something that I thought could be in my path because I had so many hurdles and so many setbacks. Again, it was almost like a repeat of the soccer syndrome where I was just grateful and happy to be there, right?
Yeah.
To any capacity, I'm on the ice, I'm just happy. I'm just grateful. So what had happened was skating's expensive. And I had gone back to college. I did a 1-year program to be like a dental reception and assistant, and I was HARP certified to take dental x-rays. And I thought, okay, I was making a tiny little bit more money, but I knew that if I wanted to support this expensive habit of skating, I needed to make more money. And I had decided to go back to university and become an x-ray technician. And I thought, I'll do this 2-year program and have a job, fulfill society's expectations of me, make my parents happy with getting a job that pays good money, and then I can fulfill my dreams and desires and skate on the side. And so I had rented a house in London, Ontario. I had moved everything I own up there, and that summer I was working at a children's camp. And in the middle of the summer, I had a day off, and I went up to the house in London and decided to look for a job. I was like, maybe I can teach skating while I'm going to school and studying.
Good idea.
So I went to the sectional office for Canadian Skating Association, and the lady was helping me, like, these are the clubs in the area, these are the ones you can apply at. And she's like, oh, there's a job coming through on the fax machine. And so,
Wow.
the olden days.
Yeah.
And then so she goes over to the fax machine. She's like, oh, you probably don't want this. And I was like, oh, well, where is it? And she's like, oh, it's in British Columbia, so that's too far away. And I was like, oh, well, can I just have a copy of it? And in my mind, I'm thinking, if I could practice applying for a job, it's just good practice overall.
Yeah.
So I took that piece of paper home and I sent off my application, and they were like, oh, we'd like to interview you. And I'm like, okay, I'll just go through the process. And so I do my interview, and then they offer me a job. And I'm like, wait,
Whoa.
okay, school's starting in 3 weeks. Like, oh my gosh. And so I didn't know what to do. And I was, everything was in boxes in this house. And I'm going to go to school so that I can skate. But I have this opportunity that I could be on the ice teaching 23 hours a week and then skate as much as I want for free.
Sounds good.
Right.
What should I do here?
Yeah.
So I basically bought a used U-Haul, put a hitch on my car, put everything in the trailer, and I drove out west.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
So that led me to eventually becoming a Disney on Ice skater. So I had a wonderful season out in British Columbia. It was myself and another coach. We were in charge of 126 students. We're in a small community of like 5,500. It was a very, very small community. We did so many lesson plans. Basically, I learned how to run a club in that 8 months that I was there because we were so heavily involved as coaches. We ran the whole show, basically. Not only that, I also learned and tested 17 tests in 8 months, which is unheard of. Ice dance, freestyle, moves in the field, like everything. It was incredible.
Wow.
Yep.
That had to be exhilarating.
It was a lot. It would be an 8-hour day on the ice where I'd be putting my skaters out to be testing. I actually learned the male partnering steps for ice dance so I could partner my students through the tests. So not only did I learn the female steps, I also learned the male steps. And I'm 5'2", so it's like I took all the little kids and she was taller. She took all the big kids. Yeah, and so she had talked about, she had been out there for 5 years. And it's a funny story. She was from Winnipeg. Well, if you remember in the story, guess where my coach was from?
Winnipeg. Yeah.
So she knows him. I think she took lessons from him. So
Wow.
I was like, you know Paul? And she's like, are you talking about Mr. C? I go, yes. So it was really fun. We had like that connection. But she had been out in British Columbia for 5 years. And she's like, I think I'm going to go try out for Disney on Ice. And I was like, what do you mean try out for Disney on Ice? We can do that? And she's like, yeah. And I just didn't even think that. I don't know, it was off my radar because honestly, I'm just happy. Hazel's happy to be here. I'm just happy to be here. Just give me anything, right?
Yeah.
I'm just here. I just want to be here. And so I was like, I go, that's really incredible. Maybe I should try out for Disney on Ice. Not because I wanted to skate for Disney on Ice, although I did, but because I thought if one of my students, if they ever wanted to try out, I can say, well, I've been through the process. This is how you need to train. This is what you're going to need to do. Like, I would confidently be able to help them go through an audition. So, yeah. So that's how I ended up getting my foot in the door with Disney on Ice, was because she talked about auditioning. And I decided, I think I want to try that too.
Why was it you were always doing things for other people? Meaning, like, you were trying out so that your students could go through the process. Or you were trying out not because you were going to get the job, but so that you could go through the process. Why did you have that mindset instead of, I'm going to do it, I'm going to crush it, and I'm going to get it? Because you had that mentality in a lot of other things, but in some moments you didn't. Is there a connotation of something that held you back there?
Well, it's really interesting that you say that, or that you ask that question, because I've been asking that question myself. And I just think that, I was raised in a certain way.
Yep.
With, my parents did the best that they could. They got married very young, 16 and 17 years old, and I don't think they were equipped with the guidance that they needed to navigate life. So when we came along, I don't think anything was passed on. Things were missing in my upbringing.
Sure.
Or things were handled, or our upbringing was done in a certain way that might not have had a positive impact. And so you carry those scars or those traumas with you into life.
You do.
And you don't know how to navigate life because you're under this conception that it's done one way, and it's actually not. It's not done that way. It's not true. So I mean, even I'm 52 years old, and even to this day, I'm healing, from that. And I think healing is a lifetime process, and I think you should always strive to make yourself better. I don't blame my parents. I think they did the best that they could do, but I think that stems from obviously my upbringing. Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's a good question, though.
Well, I find that listening to you, there's a lot of your character that feeds into the decisions that you made. You're a risk taker. That was very apparent in picking up and getting a little U-Haul and going off someplace to do something. But you always had that part of you that said, my happy place is on the ice. And so sometimes we don't allow ourselves to dream bigger, like we're satisfied. And it took a lot. You had tremendous obstacles that were in front of you that would have daunted many other people. And I understand why that passion in you drove you where you went. So talk a little bit about, there's a big process, I'm assuming, to get into being a skater with Disney on Ice. And how did that did that impact your future?
Yeah, so when I went into an audition blind. I had no idea like what to expect or anticipate. And when I had finished my contract in British Columbia, I packed up the U-Haul and drove back home. And I was living with my dad at the time. And there was a show coming to Detroit like the next week, and I was like, I am not like, I wasn't ready for that. Like, I just felt like I needed to like, I was in the middle of moving, right? Like I was just moving and so I was like, okay, I'm not ready to do the one to Detroit. Where's the next closest one? And the next closest one was, I think, like 6 weeks later in Syracuse, New York. And I was like, okay, that'd be a fun road trip. You go, spend the night and come back. It's easy peasy. So I had contacted them and said, like, can I set up this audition for New York? And they said yes. And so I had taken a job, and I think that was another reason why I couldn't, because I had taken a job working at that summer camp again. So I was working at the summer camp, and I couldn't take off the time to go. And I was like, okay, camp will be done. I can go to New York, whatever. So we decided to drive to a little town on the border where Buffalo was, and we were going to spend the night there. The goal was to drive across the border, do the audition, come back and spend the night, and then continue the drive home, because it wasn't that far. There was a hockey tournament in town, and all the hotel rooms were gone. So we're like, okay, no big deal. We can just drive to the States. We'll stay somewhere on the other side. So we drive to Syracuse, New York, and we're looking for a hotel, and I pop into one place, and nope, they don't have any rooms. Pop into another place. Nope, they don't have any rooms. The third hotel I go to, I'm like, please tell me you have a room, because now time is tight. Like, I want to shower and get ready. We want to eat a meal, and then I want to go to my audition. And they're like, we're short 15,000 hotel rooms in this city right now.
Wow.
There's a Rolling Stones concert in town. Do you not know what's going on here? And I'm like, there's a what? I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And I was just like, I'm going to have to go to this audition like with like dirty hair and like no makeup. Like, I was just like, I just wanted to freshen up. Like, I wanted to feel my best or whatever. And the lady could kind of sense, and I was like, could you just rent me a room for an hour? And she was like, we're not supposed to do that. I go, I'll take anything, please. I just need to shower. So she rented me a room for an hour.
Oh, hey.
At like a chain hotel.
Sure.
Thank goodness.
So I was able to go in, have a shower, and then I'm like, I'm starving. So my mom and I go to this big, we get a big meal at this Italian restaurant, and I'm like eating all this pasta. I'm shoving food in my face. I'm like, okay. So we go to the show, and I didn't know I could watch the show, but we could see a little bit of it. They're like, go watch the ending of it, So I go backstage, and the first thing the performance director does is like, okay, so you guys, I think there was like 8 of us. You guys are here? All right, can you step on the scale, plees? And I was like,
I just ate that meal.
Oh, no. Oh my gosh, I was mortified. I was like, you're going to weigh me now?
Oh, no.
So anyway, that's just a funny side story. But so I did the audition in New York, and then the performance director asked me, you're from Windsor. Why wouldn't you audition when the show was in Detroit? We were just there. And I was like, well, then I wouldn't drive 6 hours so that you could remember me.
Good answer.
Like, okay. I like that. That's good then. I go, see, it means I really want it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So anyway, a side story. So I go home, and I get a rejection letter saying, thank you for trying out. We'll keep you on file, but we don't have anything for you. So, good luck in life, basically. See you later. And I was happy, because I was like, okay, I got to see the show, and I got to, meet people, and I know what the experience is. And so, yeah, I'm good. I just like added another thing that I know how to train skaters to do as a coach.
Yeah.
And then I thought, I've always heard that like, if you really did want something, you should really follow up with it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to mark in my calendar 6 weeks from the day of my audition, and I'm going to call them just to see.
Really?
Just to see.
I love it.
I don't know, like maybe they liked me.
They've had a change of heart.
Yes.
It's possible.
Maybe, and maybe I want to do it. Like, I kind of saw what it was like. And I think the factor that changed in my mind was when I was on the ice auditioning with the other people, I was just like them. I didn't look like I had a handicap because I did skate my whole life. I did everything they asked me to. Actually, they said in the audition, they're like, okay, we're going to show you some choreography that we want you to learn. And the line captain did it once, and I said, okay. And then I went and I did it. And they were like, we didn't teach it to you yet. And I said, oh. Sorry. And they're like, no, do you know it? And I was like, yeah. And I went and did it. And they were just like, and they're talking to the performance director and they're whatever. So I just had this ability to like see things and like pick it up. So I got the rejection letter, and then 6 weeks later, I thought, okay, here I go. I'm going to call. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to work on my communication skills. And I call, and the lady on the phone goes, oh, hi, did you not get a letter from us? And I was like, oh, yeah, I got it. She goes, well, you should have received a letter saying that we don't have a position for you. And I was like, oh, yeah, I got that. I was just wondering, maybe something changed between now and then. And so she goes, what's your name again? And so then, of course, she's probably going through her file and pulling me out. She's like, yeah, I'm sorry, we don't have anything, but thank you so much for following up. And I'm like, okay, no problem. Because now I'm thinking, I got to figure out what am I doing? Because now I'm not moving back to British Columbia. That contract is done. And I'm now in a position again where I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I know skating is in my life. Like, it has to involve skating. That is non-negotiable. The next day, I got a call from Disney saying, we have a job for you. Would you like it? And I said, yes. They're like, we don't want the answer now. You got to think about it. I go, yes, yes, I'm in.
So 24 hours.
24 hours later. All it took was you make a phone call. They looked up my name. They pulled my sheet out. They went across all their different shows and found a spot where I probably fit the description and the skill ability and whatever, and in you go. Yeah.
Wow.
Hazel, people are going to be listening to this podcast, and they're just going to be kind of blown away like we've been, where, yes, you worked very hard to figure out, I'm going to say it that way, how you could overcome the challenges or even the true obstacles that were placed in. I mean, you didn't just sit back and go, well, I got a rejection, it's a no. You continually followed through in that. I want our listeners to understand that this is part of why we have a life, right? It is the journey. It's not like you get born, you know everything that you're going to be, and you just be able to do it. Part of it is the process of learning things, not only about whatever specific area you want to be in, but it's learning about yourself, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that when I listen to you, I think that one of the things we've lost as a society is to really be introspective. The ability to not want to look at everything and say, I mean, I heard you say in the dark years there was a lot of why is this not why? That's natural. But you didn't stop there. You went on and you said, well, I'm not going to let it deter me. And one of the things as a Ember Igniter is that we take very seriously, as a believers, we have a particular verse in the Word of God that talks about fanning the flames of the God-given characteristics and beautiful things that He's placed in you. And nobody taught me to fan my flame,
Yeah.
It's so refreshing, even though it's hard and it's been a journey for you. It's so refreshing to have someone like you come on and say, look, it wasn't easy, but I accomplished something I didn't even, in my mind, imagine. I mean, you would just be happy on the ice, but now you're with Disney on ice. Did that all go smooth for you as well?
Yes and no. I mean, it was fantastic, and I was like living a dream beyond my dreams. But it goes back to saying again, like, I faced a lot of challenges to get there, and everything can happen for you. But the question again is, what are you willing to give up to make it come true? So I always say that, number one. And number two is, if you are faced with obstacles, when you're in alignment with what it is you're meant to do, the challenges don't stop you. You find ways around them because it's worth it. It's worth the work and it's worth the effort because of the reward. So for me, it was like at that one point, I'm like hitting my head against a brick wall thinking like, am I meant to do this? And I always refer to this as you have, sometimes you're presented with, is this a redirection? Or is this a test?
That's a great way to say it.
So that was a very pivotal point in my life where it was like, I have tried for 3 years to get back on the ice, and the door keeps shutting in my face. So am I meant to be redirected down a different path? That's one way you can look at it, and you can make a choice that would support that. But for me, the choice was, okay, all right, life, you're testing me. You want to see if I really want this? I'm going to show you. I have what it takes. So there's 2 ways that you can look at it. And so the path that I chose was, I want it bad enough that I will overcome every challenge you throw at me. Come on, give me another one. I got this. I can do it. Come on, let's go. I didn't always, I tried to live a humble life and not be like I'm great, I can do this, I'm going to embrace it, whatever, because there are limitations and you have to work within your parameters. I always say you have to shine the brightest with what you have.
That's right.
You have to, I tell my skating students, you're climbing a ladder in your training, and whatever rung you're on, sometimes you need to take a step back 1 or 2 rungs, sometimes you skip ahead 3 rungs. I go, but whatever rung of the ladder you're on, you do the best at that rung. That's all that you can do. That is your best. That's what you put forth. So for me, joining Disney on Ice, it was a little bit of imposter syndrome because I felt like, am I going to make it? Like, first of all, I was worried about my stress fractures because I'm still in these skates that are taller. And I'm like, am I going to last a week, a month, a year? I don't know. We'll go and see. And the one motto that I live by is just try.
That's good.
Just try. So I'm going to move to British Columbia. It could be a huge failure, but I'm going to just try. I could go to Disney on Ice and people will laugh at me because I don't have the skills that everyone else does because they skated their whole life, but I'm going to go and just try. I could go to Disney on Ice and I might not make it, but I'm going to just try. So if you just give yourself permission to try, step 1. Give yourself permission to change your mind, step 2. If you don't like it, get off the ice. I said that to a student of mine.
I love it.
She was going to a competition. This is when I was in British Columbia, and it was her first competition. And I put her on the ice for warm up, and her legs were like shaking, and she skated around. She fell, and she came right back off. And I went to say something to her, and she like pushed past me and was off the ice. I'm like, whoa, 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 where are you going? She's like, I'm not doing that. And I was like, hang on a second, calm down. Her mom came over, and I was like, you go sit down. I don't need you. Because parents can, interfere with the kids. So I'm like, okay, calm down. Let's have a conversation about this. I go, are you trained to be here today? Yes. Are you prepared to be here? Yes. What happened out there? Well, I felt I can't do it. I go, you can do it. So let's just think about this. You made a decision to be here today. So give yourself the opportunity to at least just try. I go, I'm going to make a deal with you, because she was refusing to be back on the ice. When it's your turn to compete, so when they call your name, you go on the ice, you take your opening pose, and you wait till the music starts and you start skating. You have to skate for 15 seconds. If you decide then that you still feel the same way that you feel now, you have my permission to come off the ice. You come off the ice and I'll help you, okay? And she's like, I'm like, that's the deal. There's no negotiating. That's the deal, okay? Are you okay with that? I go, I'm giving you permission to change your mind, but you have to at least first try. You have to try. You haven't tried yet. That was the warm-up. That wasn't the competition. I go, you have to at least try. She's like, okay, I'll do it. So it was her turn, and she kind of wanted to back out, and I said, you got it. Come on, let's go. You know our deal. We made a deal. You got to just try. She gets out on the ice, and you could see her like legs shaking, and she's like holding her opening pose, and she's looking at me, and her music started, and I was counting 1, 2, 3, and I didn't have to finish counting. She did the whole program. She did awesome. She won a medal. She was on the podium. It was great.
And she was like, I don't even know what. Yeah, like she almost gave up on everything for nothing.
She almost gave up. And if I had let her stay off the ice and not compete, she probably wouldn't have competed again. Like, I don't know. Maybe the chances are she wouldn't have competed again. I don't know. Because it was such a traumatic experience for her. She was like, this is not what I signed up for. But I'm like, you did. You wanted to do this. Just try. Just try. And it's okay. If you need to change your mind once you start, give yourself the grace and the permission to change your mind. I go, but you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't just try. You'll never know what you're capable of. You'll never know. I'm living proof that you'll never know what you're capable of unless you just try.
I love that you say just try. One of the things that Jenna and I, we went to a conference early on, we learned an acronym for the word fail. People are afraid, right, of failure, or just like just try. Well, this individual said, well, if you spell out fail, it really says it's your first attempt at learning. And that to me was like, oh, that's right. Children don't just stand up one day and walk. They wobble, they stand, and they take that first wobbly step, and boom, they're on their butt. And then the next thing is they get up and they try again. So what you're saying really resonates with that ability to say, we think we fail. We're afraid of it. But every one of those little moments where you feel you failed is really the greatest opportunity to get you closer to the very dream that is within you. And
Failure is growth.
it is growth.
It's knowledge, because every time you do something and you don't think you succeed, you're actually taking steps to success.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I think we even at that same conference always said that every time we failed, we were going to high five each other, because we knew that we would be one step closer to our breakthrough. And so we have done that every step of the way, because we've faced some challenges through this podcast and whatnot. But yeah, we just really resonate with your story. So how did Disney on Ice go? Like, what was that like? Because now, to me, it seems like you've reached the mecca, right, of everything.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. I had a little bit of imposter syndrome because I felt like I didn't deserve to be there, like almost like you had to earn your rights, but I did deserve to be there. You know, I talk about Pinocchio and take the straight and narrow path. Well, it wasn't straight and narrow. It was very windy, hilly, full of potholes and the whole 9 yards. But it was a very fun and rewarding job, but like any job, it's a job. So let's clarify this myth. People say, find something that you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
False. That is false.
False.
Do not believe that. It is a true statement in the sense that find something that you love. Yes, you should do that. But it makes the work worthwhile.
Yes.
You are still going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a job. You know, there was challenges in that job. Like I said, I was working at that summer camp before going. The food wasn't great. You know, kids camping, you're eating camp food. And I had gained a little bit of weight. So when I had showed up and they weighed us, the scale didn't, and I was like, thank goodness I ate that spaghetti dinner at auditions, because the scale was heavier, right, when I had come back. So they weigh everyone every 2 weeks. And there was about 6 of us that were said, you guys need to be weighed every week because you're outside of your weight limit or weight range. And I was like, I didn't know like what my weight range was. I guess I should have asked. But so we're getting weighed every week, and rehearsals were grueling. And I had lost 11 pounds in like the first 2 weeks of tour, which I think is great. But I think I was just outside of my weight range still by a couple pounds. And so then there was 4 of us getting weighed every week. So then there was 2 of us getting weighed every week. And then it was just me. I was being weighed every week. And I'm thinking, okay, like 3/4 of the tour goes by and I'm still getting weighed every week. And I'm like, why am I being singled out, you know? So I thought, well, you know, when I auditioned, and it was the same performance director, I ended up being cast on his show. So it was the same performance director. When I auditioned, I wore a dress that had shoulder pads in them because I have a pear shape. So I have narrow shoulders and wider hips. So I wore these shoulder pads to make me look a little bit more proportioned. So I was like, hey, Mom, I called my mom. Can you send me some shoulder pads? You know, she's like, yeah, sure, okay.
It's probably like
odd request, but go for it.
And so we had to wear these, they were called flute suits. So they were like mock turtlenecks. Imagine like speed skating suits, but made out of like beige cotton. They were so ugly. But they're designed to wear underneath your costumes to absorb all your sweat and oils from your skin so they don't damage the costumes, right? So we had these flute suits, and I like stuck them down the shoulders of my flute suit, and I had my robe on, and I was backstage, and I walked by the performance director. I was like, oh, do you have a second? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, I just wanted to ask you, how do you think I look? And I, you know, we take our robes off. We have clothing on, right? So I have my flute suit on and a pair of shorts. And I take my robe off, and I stand, and he's like, good. Like he was kind of taken aback. I don't think he knew what to say. And he's like, I'm like, how do I look? And he's like, good. And I go, shoulder pads. And he was like, I'm like, I auditioned with shoulder pads. I know my body shape isn't what you want it to be. I can't change my bone structure, but I can add shoulder pads. So if with your permission, I'm more than happy to sew shoulder pads in all my flute suits. And I go, and then I think I'll look better in all these skinny costumes that you make us wear. And do I have your permission to do so? And he was like, okay. Like I just caught him with no warning. And of course, I said I struggled with my communication. I wasn't very good at communicating. There's probably a much better way I could have done that.
I love the way you did it, though.
And so the next week comes up, and I'm getting ready to go for weigh-ins, and the line captain says, "Oh, Hazel, you don't have to do weigh-ins. You just join everyone else every 2 weeks."
Wow.
And I was like, huh, okay. And he never asked me for another weigh-in on my own again. And I was like, okay, that was interesting. So that was a challenge that I had to overcome on tour. And again, I got creative, and I was trying to figure out, what is it that they want? Like, what does he want? And how can I provide that? Because I can't lose any more weight. I think I was 117 pounds at the time, 115, 117. And so I was thin. I was fitting in all my costumes, but I have a very long torso and I have wide hips, you know. And so that was my solution with shoulder pads, to make me look more proportioned, and it was fine. Yeah,
Wow.
that was how it went. Yeah.
Amazing.
So how long did you do Disney on Ice?
I did it for 6 years. The first year was the challenging. There was the weight challenge, and then there was also a bully. There was a skater on the team that bullied me. And I think she could sense my, you know, you have an energy about yourself, whether you're confident or not. And I think I had this imposter syndrome, and I felt like I didn't pay my dues, and I didn't have enough training, and I wasn't experienced enough. All these things running through my head. And she kind of picked up on that. And so we were in the character room, and she was another character, and she would bully me. She would just do things on purpose to make me get corrections in the show. And she just wasn't a really pleasant person. And at the end of the season, I just finally had enough. And I think she just poked me one too many times. And I put my hands down on the table, and I stood up. And it's after the show, and everyone's in there taking their makeup off, packing up, getting ready to leave. And I said, "That's it." And I just basically told her how she was treating me, and how I didn't appreciate it, and how I wanted to be treated. And that, you know, I basically stood up for myself. And again, that goes back to I wasn't equipped with the communication skills that I needed to stand up for myself. But afterwards, people were coming up to me and were like, "We saw how she was bullying you. We're sorry we didn't stand up for you, and you should never have gone through that," or "I didn't know that was happening." And you know, so everyone was really like loving and supportive. But it kind of like tainted my first year, because I had two big challenges. Like, here I am, struggle to skate. Now I'm skating, struggle while I'm skating. Now I'm living the dream, struggle in the dream. I'm thinking, come on, you know?
I want off the struggle bus.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something right now, like, honestly, like, your energy and how you project yourself, the treatment that you get from others is what you allow to come into your zone.
This is so true. Thanks for saying that. Really, really true. Yeah.
And a shift in, like, so I've been working on self-development and working on my communication skills and working on me as a person. The communication or the correspondence that I have with other people has totally shifted and changed. It really does make a difference. So if you feel like, you know, people pick on you or whatever, stop blaming them. Start looking at yourself, work on you, and those things will change. You have to change yourself first. And you talked a lot about, you know, you say my things came from inside, and it is very, very true. My passion always felt like this burning fire of desire inside. And when that passion came back, it was from inside. And when I, you know, did something or did reflection, it was always from inside. So
that's
step
where it
one, it's here. You look inside, and your exterior experiences will change and shift.
Well, and we have a mentor that says, as you grow, the things around you grow, and you end up leaving things behind in that process as well. And I like that little piece of advice that you gave about not letting things into your space and piercing you, because I think sometimes nowadays, even the kids, they really have a hard time of just having a thick skin. Like, we used to have that, and now you can say the tiniest thing and it's like, poof, you just offended the whole world. And that's kind of scary.
Here's the thing. You may not ever get the love and support that you need from those who you expect to get it from. That could be a parent, a friend, a sibling, you know, a teacher, whatever. So if you're holding on to the hope that someone is going to love and support you and help you fulfill your dreams, drop that right now. You are lucky if you have that. So that's a blessing. So.
I just want to share, we Jenna and I go every year to a particular conference for personal growth and leadership. And this year, we've been doing it sort of through virtual simulcast. But this year we went to the actual venue to be in the crowd with everyone. We had an incredibly wonderful time. I mean, it just really kind of feeds us. But the opening speaker, who is also a person we view as a mentor to what we do, he started out by saying, I'm going to give you permission to be obsessive about your passion. You know, and he went into just this wonderful way of saying, if you're not obsessed by your passion, then it's not your passion. But when you are, be obsessive about it.
Yeah.
And that was such a great opening statement that we've taken, because we're taking, just Hazel, like you're doing, you're taking the experience of your life, and we're 3 generations here of different ages. And what we're doing with that is we're saying it's possible. There's a way that all of us can feed into each other. I'm getting a tickle in my throat. And I feel like when we are in those moments when someone can say, I can look at you and say, no matter what someone said to you, there's potential in you. That's a true statement. That's not me just saying, oh, I want to make you feel happy. We're experiencing things that all of us go through in different ways. And there's one way to really get that, and it's to look at yourself and believe in yourself.
Well, and I want to add too, with the obsessiveness, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to, like for you, you would have been focusing on skating, or us focusing on building this empire, as we call it. It was also being obsessed with other things that get affected. So like he's saying, be obsessed with your schedule. And he's like, one of the things that I do is I don't have any meetings before noon. We have another mentor that does not have any meetings until the end of the day.
Right.
And it's those little shifts and things of protecting your time and your place and your space that makes you successful. And being obsessive about that is what you have to do. And we all want the destination, but a lot of us don't want the journey.
That's that's true.
So
Yes.
I remember even John Maxwell one time saying to a young lad where he was like, well, I want to do what you do. And he said, well, do you want to do what I did to do what I do?
Yeah.
And so it's just such a transition in that. And part of that is being obsessive. So I love that you said that.
The word that I like to use is selfish. And I don't know if that resonates with anyone, but I'm like, honestly, to find true success in a sport, you have to be selfish about it. You have to put your needs first to accomplish certain things. And a lot of times that goes against the grain of what society says.
Yes.
You're a mother, you should be putting your kids first, and you need to do this. And what about your career and your family and your home? Yes, there's a lot of things that are important and that should be prioritized. But if you have a passion or you want true success, you have to be selfish about that, because you're the only one who's going to make it come true. You're the only one who holds that responsibility. I don't want to make your dreams come true. I want to make my dreams come true. Do you know what I mean? Like, people aren't going to be invested in making your dreams come true unless they're a coach and you're paying them.
Right.
It's
true. Yeah.
You have to be selfish with that, because if you're not, and say you're not selfish about your dreams coming true, and you're like, okay, it's kind of like after I fulfill all my other commitments, do you have anything left to put towards it? It's going to fall by the wayside. It's going to fall lower and lower and lower on your scale of priorities, and it's never going to get done.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember Tim even mentioning something about that when he made it to the NFL. We had him on our podcast last year, actually. And he talked about how, the diet and the schedule and everything. And he's like, yeah, I was pretty selfish, but my wife was there with me every step of the way. But to be in that top 1% of people, you have to be that way.
You're compulsive, obsessive, and selfish.
Yeah, I think that the word selfish by itself, when we say that, I'm sure there are people out there going, well, that doesn't sound right. Yeah, I mean, in all honesty. But it's that area of self investment.
Yeah.
It's that ability to pull out of yourself the things that you were created for.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's not, I wish I knew a different definition for that word, because I think when we say selfish, it gives you this like somebody who doesn't care about anybody else's feelings or anybody else. That's not really what we're all saying. We're saying that it takes your personal investment in you. We're always going to be looking to pour out. There are people who all they do is pour out to other people, but they never think about themselves, and they lose themselves, and they don't fulfill what was their life assignment, the very thing that we were created for. We want everyone to discover that thing that's so specific to just you. And so, we'll say that's selfish, but I want you to understand that's a big, broad thing, not the stingy, I'm only thinking about myself.
Well, I think it's a sliver of selfishness to protect your passion. So the
Yes.
selfishness is geared toward that one thing.
Yes.
So my selfishness was, I'm not giving up on my dream to skate.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's not, I'm a selfish person. Like,
That's right.
Right,
I'm going to
yeah.
go to McDonald's and I'm going to buy things, but I'm not getting you or you anything. I'm only buying the Happy Meal for
Yeah.
me. That's selfish. No, but
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm being a sliver of selfishness
That's right.
towards my goal.
Investment
towards my
in
dream.
yourself is
Yeah.
so important.
But I
Yeah.
like the way you put it though, because what are you willing to give up in order to pursue your passion and your dream? Because that really is the ultimate question.
Well, I think too, I was part of this other training, and they said that the number one, and I've always felt this, the number one thing people fear in life, do you guys know what it is? The number one
Public
thing people
speaking
fear.
and death.
That's a good one. Those are two very good ones. They're very up there, but it's not the one.
Really?
Do you want to take a guess?
The thing that people fear the
Fear the
most, I'm going to think about myself in a minute, and I'm going to say the thing I fear the most is that I don't matter to people.
That's close. It's unfulfillment.
Yeah.
People are afraid that they won't fulfill their destiny. They're afraid of living their whole life without being fulfilled.
That's right.
But
The
they don't go
number
after
one.
it.
That's why we're talking about it today.
You're
That's
right.
exactly
They-
right.
That's
You need to go after it.
yes, please.
To any capacity. I thought I wanted to be an Olympic champion. I wanted to be on the competitive world stage, and I was on a world stage. It was just to a different capacity. So if you're willing to shift, be flexible, modify, and still accomplish your dreams and goals, but to a different capacity, you're still going to find fulfillment, which I did.
So can I ask, what's in the future for you?
Oh, that's
Yes.
a loaded question.
I
well,
know.
good. We've got time.
So I'm going to go back to the drawing that I did when I was 8 years old. And it was a school project, and we had those years. And I'll share with you what I wrote, if I can remember off the top of my head in each year. So it said, when I grow up, I want to be, and at age 15, apparently I wanted to be good at arithmetic. So I must have been struggling with that in school at that time. And I wanted to be a good high school student. And I wanted to skate. And at 18, I wanted to skate every day from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I think I chose that
Wow.
because my parents went to work from 8 to 5 or something. So,
Sure.
But it's interesting because at 18 is when I buried my dreams to skate. So keep that number in mind. At 25, I wanted to teach skating. Well, that was the year that I moved out to British Columbia to teach skating when I became a coach. At 35, I wanted to get married and marry the man of my dreams.
Right.
And I got married at age 35 after thinking I would never find the one, because my
You were
gym
skating.
boyfriend from the gym, I said he treated me very well, that every boyfriend I had since then never compared to him until I met my Prince Charming when I was 35 years old. Then it said at, how many did I do? 15,
30.
18. Oh, I forgot 21. 21 was skating. 25 was moving to British Columbia to coach. 35 was marrying the man of my dreams. And 50 was writing a book and sharing all my life lessons that I have from skating. And my husband and I had moved into a new home, and I was unpacking some boxes, and I came across a box of childhood memories. And we lost a lot. We moved around a lot, and we lost a lot of my possessions over the years. And so this is the last remaining box of whatever I have from my childhood. I have very few photos. And when I found that piece of paper and I read it, my jaw hit the ground, because just after my 50th birthday, I started writing a book about my story as a figure skater, and how I wanted to share the message about, hey, I'm just an ordinary girl trying to live an extraordinary life. I always say, shine the brightest with what you have. I didn't take the straight and narrow path there. I don't have all the years of experience and training, but I still found success, and so can you. And so I wanted to share that message with everyone. So what's next for Hazel is to build on that last square, which is to finish writing my book, to do more podcasts like this. I would like to host my own podcast show. I'd love to get into public speaking, and well, actually, let me rephrase that. I've started to do public speaking, and I am a speaker.
There you are. Good.
So I always say start sloppy. That was sloppy. So, but hey, I'm on my path. So I've been getting a lot of positive feedback, and I know that some of the life lessons that I've learned along the way could hold some value to other people.
Absolutely.
And I really want to share that message and travel the world sharing that message. I've been to 52 countries. That's just the tip of the iceberg for where I actually want to go. I want to travel around the world sharing this message.
Amazing.
But it'll be a different trip this time. Because last time you were performing, and this time you get to teach.
Yes.
And have a greater impact. Because performing is, while it's great and it does impact people, sharing your message and your story and the impact of your life and everything that you've been through, you're going to go places. And we're just so honored to know you and to be your friend. So
I'm very honored that you guys asked me to be here. And I talked about, that first chapter in the Les Brown book. That's what I want. That's the impact that I want to have on stages for other people so that they can fulfill their dreams. And I love the mission that you guys have. We're so aligned in so many ways. And I just think for those of you listening, you need to watch all the episodes and subscribe and stay tuned, because these ladies have something very special going on here. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, we finished another one.
We did.
Kind of... this one's kind of sad, I have to say, like, to finish out, and not in a bad way, but just you have such an amazing story, and I just can't wait to hear what comes next. And so my sadness comes from there's nothing else to say because she's such an amazing person. But we thank you for tuning in and listening, and we will catch you next month.